Japan's ruling party is facing its biggest political scandal of the 21st century. It involves nearly 700 million yen in unreported funds. The scandal forced Prime Minister Fumio Kishida to resign and played a major role in the ruling party's heavy loss during the October 2024 parliamentary elections. Though the media first broke the story in November 2023, the issue remains unresolved. Without understanding the slush fund scandal, you can't fully grasp why the ruling party is struggling or why Japanese politics might be at a critical turning point. In this video, we'll walk through the entire scandal. We'll break down what happened, how events unfolded, and why it's still shaking up Japanese politics today. It all started with a small article back in 2022. The Japanese Communist Party's newspaper, Akahata Shimbun, published a piece alleging that the LDP was running a slush fund. Most people ignored it at the time, partly because it came from the Communist Party. But one professor took a closer look. He fact-checked the article and concluded that the LDP had indeed misreported its fundraising records. In November 2023, he filed a criminal complaint. He claimed the party had failed to report 40 million yen over the past 5 years. Within the LDP, there are multiple factions. Most LDP politicians belong to one, usually led by a senior figure like former Prime Ministers Abe, Asuo, or Kishida. These factions play a key role in choosing the next Prime Minister. They also allow the LDP to cover a wide range of political views, which is why it's often called a catch-all party. Each faction hosts its own fundraising parties. Private individuals and companies buy tickets to attend, and the money goes towards political activities. The ticket prices vary, but they're not cheap. Of course, no one just shows up to these events uninvited. Politicians have to reach out to people and invite them. To raise money, each lawmaker is given a ticket sales quota, which depends on their rank. Here's the interesting part. If a politician goes above their quota, the extra revenue is usually handed back to them. So, if a politician was expected to raise $2,000 but ended up with $3,000, they might pocket the extra $1,000. This is legal, but only if they report it properly. Politicians need to declare the money either as personal income or political funds. The problem comes when they don't. If they fail to report that income, it's considered tax evasion, and that's illegal. Penalties include fines, possible jail time, and most importantly, being banned for running for office for 5 years. The initial allegation claimed that the LDP had failed to report 40 million yen in fundraising revenue. At first, the Abe faction was said to be responsible for about half of that amount. But once prosecutors got involved, the numbers grew quickly. Investigators found that the Abe faction had failed to report around 500 million yen over a 5-year period. The Nikai faction was found to have about 100 million yen unreported. Then Prime Minister Kishida's faction was reported to have 2 to 3 million yen unaccounted for. In response, on December 7th, 2023, Prime Minister Kishida announced that the LDP would cancel its end-of-the-year and New Year's gatherings for 2024. The next day, he said he would withdraw from his own faction. But things got worse. The Deputy Minister of Defense, Hiroyuki Miyazawa, reportedly admitted that members of the Abe faction told him it wasn't necessary to record the kickback amounts. The following day, 4 members of the Abe faction stepped down from the cabinet. This included 3 ministers and the chief cabinet secretary. On December 19th, prosecutors launched a forced search of the Abe and Nikai faction offices. This kind of investigation hadn't happened since the 1990s, when the LDP was involved in another major money scandal. But that's a story for another time. After about a month of investigation, prosecutors indicted 3 LDP members, their secretaries, and accountants. All were linked to nearly 50 million yen in unreported funds. But the investigation stopped there. Politicians with 20 to 30 million yen unreported were not indicted. Under Japanese laws, prosecutors need clear proof tracing the money's origins before moving forward with an indictment. Still, this legal explanation didn't satisfy the public. After prosecutors dropped the case against some, several LDP politicians said they had misentered the amounts they received. Legally, politicians can correct the past tax filings to avoid penalties. Now things are getting complicated. Besides the slush fund scandal, critics and the media began scrutinizing the ruling party's overall use of political funds. For example, faction leader Toshio Nikai reportedly received about 5 billion yen from the LDP over 5 years for political activities. That breaks down to roughly 120,000 yen or around $800 per hour, 24 hours a day, every single day for 5 years. While not illegal, this raised questions about how one politician could legally access such a huge sum. As frustrations grew, Prime Minister Kishida took the unprecedented step. He dissolved his own faction. In fact, all factions except the Aso faction dissolved, breaking years of LDP tradition. Kishida also created the LDP Reform Panel, called the Seiji Sashin Honbu, to suggest changes within the party and in law to prevent future corruption. The panel released a modest midterm report on January 25, 2024, which you can learn more about in this video. A week later, 95 members of the Abe faction revised their income statements. It was revealed that between 2018 and 2022, they had underreported a total of 670 million yen in revenue. Things kept getting worse for the LDP. The LDP launched an internal investigation into fundraising kickbacks. By February 13th, the party announced that 85 members had misreported political funds, with a total of about 500 million yen underreported during the same period. After the internal probe, the scandal moved to the public stage. The Dai's Political Ethics Committee held hearings where implicated lawmakers were questioned under scrutiny. Initially, 5 top executives from the Abe and Nikai factions requested closed sessions for these hearings. 2 lawmakers, Yasutoshi Nishimura and Ryota Takeda, withdrew at the last minute. The turning point came when Prime Minister Kishida announced he would attend the hearings and that the sessions would be public. During the February 29 and March 1st hearings, it emerged that former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe had called to end the kickback system in April 2022. This suggested that past faction leaders such as Toshihiro Hosoda and former Prime Minister Yoshiro Mori were aware of or involved in the long-standing slush fund practice. After Abe's assassination in July 2022, the kickback scheme resumed. No one could clearly explain why or who was behind its revival. On March 8th, opposition parties in the upper house requested 32 politicians from the Abe and Nikai factions to testify. Only 3 responded. Additional hearings on March 14th and 18th features testimonies from Hiroshi Goseko and Hakubun Shimomura. However, the executives claimed ignorance. The hearings made it clear that none of the executives would accept responsibility. Each claimed they didn't know. As you might expect, the political ethics hearings didn't clarify much. Instead, they raised more questions and angered the public. As the president of the ruling party, then Prime Minister Kishida promised the party would punish those involved in the fundraising scandal. Early rumors suggested about 80 members, including Toshihiro Nikai, would face discipline. But on March 26, Nikai announced he would retire from politics. On April 4th, it was revealed that 39 LDP members were punished. Most were from the Abe and Nikai factions. They either underreported more than 5 million yen or held leadership roles. Here is the LDP's disciplinary scale. 2 members were recommended to leave the party. 3 had their memberships suspended, 2 for 1 year and 1 for 6 months. These 5 will not receive party support in the planned fall 2025 election. In response, Shionoya and Seko left the party. Others faced suspensions from party positions for 6 months or a year. 17 individuals received warnings. Despite Kishida's actions, dissatisfaction remained. LDP members were upset that only Abe and Nikai faction members were targeted. The public was outraged that the other 46 individuals faced no punishment at all. Remember, back in February, 85 members admitted to misreported political funds. As Parliament wrapped up in June, every party rushed to revise the Political Funds Control Act. This law regulates how political funds are collected, reported, and used to ensure transparency and fairness. Under the current rules, parties can distribute policy activity expenses to individual Dai members. Additionally, to help curb slush funds, Japan introduced a system in the 1990s called Seiji Katsudo Kofukin, political activity subsidies funded by taxpayers. The intent was to support legitimate political expenses and reduce dependence on opaque private funding. For context, among the 4 largest parties, the LDP received and spent the most of these subsidies in 2022. These payments are legal, and politicians didn't have to disclose how they spent the money. This loophole lets public funds indirectly finance private political activities without transparency. Critics call this loophole helped enable the whole slush fund scandal. In late April 2024, the LDP's Political Reform Task Force proposed changes to improve accountability. One key proposal requires DIE members to sign a confirmation letter verifying their political funds reports. At the time, secretaries or accountants sign without mandatory political review. This gap lets politicians claim ignorance to dodge responsibility. The new rules would require politicians to personally oversee reports. Failure to comply could suspend their civil rights and bar them from running for office. But there's still a problem. Donations under 200,000 yen can remain anonymous, which hurts transparency. The ruling coalition couldn't agree on this. The LDP submitted its proposal in mid-May without the usual joint submission with its coalition party, the Komeito. The LDP suggested lowering anonymous donations to 100,000 yen and letting politicians report funds by broad categories rather than every detail. Opposition parties, the Constitutional Democratic Party and the Democratic Party for the People, proposed abolishing political activity funds and corporate donations. The Japan Innovation Party, the 3rd largest political party in the lower house, pushed for transparency by requiring detailed spending reports 10 years later. Facing pushback, on May 29, the LDP revised its plan. It added a clause to revisit the law after 3 years and called for monthly expenditure reports. Surprisingly, the Komeito rejected this. They wanted politicians to submit receipts and for all donations above 50,000 yen to be made public. To pass the revision before Parliament ended in June, the LDP agreed to the Komeito and the Japan Innovation Party's demand. Donations above 50,000 yen would be made public, and a third-party group will oversee political fund use. The JIP's proposal to disclose detailed spending after 10 years was accepted. This secured Kome and JIP votes. With this agreement, the bill was set for the lower house vote on June 4, 2024. But on June 3rd, the JIP said the revision wasn't enough, delaying the vote to June 5th. The JIP objected because the proposed bill only required disclosure of political spending over 500,000 yen after 10 years. The LDP revised the bill again. It passed both the lower and upper houses on June 5th and 19th respectively. As expected, no one was happy. The opposition and public wanted faster transparency. LDP members were frustrated with Kishida's leadership. With his term ending in September 2024, Kishida announced on August 14th that he would not seek re-election and would step down as Prime Minister when his term ended. With Kishida stepping down, the LDP held its inter-party presidential election on September 27th. You can check out the details in these 2 videos. As a result, Shigeru Ishiba became president of the LDP, and thereby the new Prime Minister of Japan. With a new leader in place, the Prime Minister decided to call a snap election. He had only been in office for 8 days, making this the fastest snap election to be called since the end of World War II. There are a few things Ishiba did to address the LDP slush fund scandal. First, his newly formed cabinet did not include anyone from the Abe faction. Second, on October 6, Ishiba announced that the LDP would not endorse 12 politicians implicated in the slush fund scandal. He also confirmed that all lawmakers involved, regardless of the level of disciplinary action, will be excluded from the party's Hide Fukasu list. This list is a key feature of Japan's electoral system, allowing candidates who lose in single-seat districts to win a seat through proportional representation. That's a total of 37 politicians. Proportional representation resurrection, or Hide Fukasu, is a unique feature of Japan's mixed electoral system. To simplify, candidates run in both a single-member district and a proportional representation block under the same party. If they lose narrowly in their district, they can still get elected if their party's PR list ranking is high enough. By removing scandal-hit politicians from this PR list, Ishiba ensured that they had no alternative path back into parliament. This raised the stakes significantly. This allowed voters to directly decide whether to punish the politicians involved in the slush fund scandal. Many LDP politicians, however, pushed back. They argued that they had already been disciplined, and removing them from the PR list amounted to additional punishment that wasn't justified. Just 3 days before the October election, reports surfaced that the LDP was indirectly supporting some of these politicians through local party branches to help expand its political presence. Whether intentional or not, this likely reinforced the public's distrust of the LDP. On October 27th, election day, no party won a majority. The LDP dropped from 261 to 191 seats, losing 70 seats overall. Their proportional vote count dropped by 26.8%, falling to 14.58 million ballots cast. While the LDP remains the largest party in parliament, the LDP-Komeito coalition now governs as a minority government with just 215 seats. Now that the opposition parties hold a majority, it has become easier to adopt a stricter Political Funds Control Act. More LDP politicians from both the upper and lower houses agreed to attend political ethics hearings. By December 24, 2024, 3 new laws related to political funding were passed with support from both the ruling coalition and opposition. Policy activity funds provided by political activities will be abolished. A third-party institution, tentatively named the Political Funds Oversight Committee, will be established within the parliament to monitor political finances. Foreign nationals would be prohibited from purchasing tickets to political fundraising parties. All political expenditures must be disclosed online in a searchable PDF database. Because political parties could not agree on how to handle corporate donations, they decided to continue discussions and aim to reach an agreement by the end of March 2025. However, here's what actually happened. On March 19, 2025, the Constitutional Democratic Party, the main opposition party, along with 4 other parties, submitted their version of a corporate donation bill. The proposed reforms included a comprehensive ban on donations and payments related to political fundraising parties from companies, labor unions, and other organizations. Violations would carry penalties such as imprisonment or fines. Additionally, political organizations, other than registered political parties, and political fund management organizations would face new donation limits. A total annual cap of 60 million yen and a maximum of 20 million yen per single donor organization. However, transfers between organizations affiliated with the same lawmaker would be exempt, as they are treated as internal fund movements. The bill also expanded tax deductions for individual political donations to encourage transparency and compliance. This reform will represent a major step forward. It bans corporate donations to political parties and prohibits companies from purchasing tickets to party fundraisers, often used as a loophole to funnel slush funds. Still, corporate money hasn't been fully removed from politics. In Japan, the definition of a political organization remains vague. This allows donations to flow directly to local branches or support groups tied to individual lawmakers, as long as they stay within the new limits. So yes, it's a progress, but a loophole still exists. As you can see, the opposition parties are pushing for stricter rules on who can send and receive donations. The LDP, meanwhile, emphasized transparency over outright bans. Komeito and the Democratic Party for the People voiced support for better disclosure and clear definitions of political party, but by March 2025, they were largely aligned with the LDP in focusing on transparency rather than structural reform. In the end, the parties couldn't reach a consensus, and no corporate donation reform bill passed during the session. Still, this issue is likely to return to the diet floor in the near future. This slush fund scandal, which has been discussed in public for the past 2 years, is still far off from a viable solution. The ruling party has faced scandals in the past, but this time, their luck might run out. In the end, this debate over political donations isn't just about money. As a matter of fact, the LDP donated 800 million yen to charity in late December 2024. So again, it's not about the money. It's about trust. Trust in lawmakers, in the rules that govern them, and in the idea that politics should serve the public. Japan is a democracy, where laws should govern the country. The opposition parties tried to push for accountability and reform, and even pressed for further explanation at the ethics hearing. However, no one from the ruling party is willing to fully disclose things, and the ruling party's attempts to solve the scandal is lackluster at best. Japan's ruling party, the Liberal Democratic Party, has been in power since 1955. While it seemed like they were able to withstand many political scandals, this time seems different. The Liberal Democratic Party just lost the majority in the 2025 upper house election, and while the party was quick to blame Prime Minister Ishiba, it's more likely they lost due to the slush fund scandal. Surprisingly, Ishiba's approval rating is up from July. And interestingly enough, the Liberal Democratic Party wasn't the only party that suffered a loss, and an unexpected force gained popularity. So check out this video to learn how the establishment lost the 2025 election. Like the video if you learned something new, and subscribe to learn more about Japanese politics.